Well, I've avoided the temptation for long enough, but I think now it's time that I finally do a mock draft. If you thought my channel was a bastion from which you could escape the terror that is all the YouTube channels doing mock drafts, then I am terribly sorry, but I must do this as I work on my next Ballhawks episode. Now, as much as I'm joking about it, I do actually like doing mock drafts. I just think there is a point in which you are doing a bit too many, and so I don't really want to oversaturate myself by doing like 50 mock drafts. So you could expect to see maybe a couple more between now and April when, the actual thing happens. But enough talking about it, let's see what I think the Bucs should do given the board that was given to me and make all 6 of the selections for them. Now, looking at this round 1 option list, you can already see there have been a lot of very interesting moves by certain teams, notably the Giants and Colts.
You got deathly silent.
I don't quite know what happened there, but whatever, I'll take it. Basically, we're left with 2 of the best cornerbacks left in the draft and a pretty promising edge prospect in Mykel Williams. I made a whole episode about Jahdae Barron, and I think he would be a wonderful choice for the Buccaneers if he were to fall all the way to pick 19. However, Will Johnson I think is just the safer option, and while him going to pick 19 is way more optimistic than Jahdae falling all the way to them, I would make that decision should he actually get there. Will Johnson has some of the best coverage out of all of the DBs not named Travis Hunter, and can play any sort of coverage, be it man or zone, which for the Buccaneers is very good as our cornerbacks don't seem to be very good at zone despite the abundance of it that we run. And similar to Jahdae Barron, he is able to read cornerbacks like they are a Dr. Seuss novel and has gotten a knack for interceptions. However, his knack for interceptions does have a bit of a downside. He plays a lot like early years Trayvon Diggs, where he is looking for interceptions above all else, which while interceptions are obviously a good thing, if you are constantly looking for them, sometimes it leaves you open for wide receivers basically using a double move on you and getting open and thus leading to big plays. However, like we saw with Trayvon Diggs, you can get that coached out of you, and if Todd Bowles and his staff are able to reel that part of him in and play a bit smarter, not always looking for interceptions, Will Johnson is a slam dunk prospect and could be a perennial Pro Bowler for the Buccaneers. In round 2, I almost went with Carson Schweitzinger because obviously the Buccaneers need all the linebacker help they can get. However, I ultimately decided with Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. He's not the sexiest option, admittedly, even at edge rusher. However, he does have a high floor, even if it means his ceiling isn't as high as, say, a Jalen Walker type. His numbers have improved every single year he's been at OSU, both in sack numbers and just all-around production. And while he's not the most athletic edge rusher in the draft, he's built for tough. Basically, he plays with incredible strength and has a really good base in which he's able to knock tackles over and get to the quarterback. His lack of speed really is made up for the fact that he has a lot of power and plays with a lot of pass rush moves. Like I said, while his numbers may not be the most impressive, I do think he could be a day 1 starter and we would see good production for a rookie. Now, in round 3, you'll see the reason why I ultimately passed on Carson Schweitzinger, and that is because I am pretty high on South Carolina rookie Demetrius Knight. Now, his biggest knock outside of his less than average athletic ability is the fact that Demetrius Knight is 25 years old. However, despite his relatively advanced age for a rookie, or he will be advanced in age for an NFL rookie, he has pretty good coverage skills. Again, this is despite his less than average speed and overall athletic ability. He's a pretty good coverage linebacker, as well as being a great blitzer, which when you're running a Todd Bowles defense is super important. Your linebackers need to know how to blitz. On top of all this, he is a pretty good special teams player, so we could see him on the field in that role immediately. I want to see him develop behind Levante David and Savassi Dennis for hopefully 1 more year and see if he can get his instincts more up to NFL standards. He's pretty decent in zone coverage, however, he has struggled in man before, so getting that development to help him hone his instincts I think would be key, which I know sounds ridiculous for a guy who's 25 years old, but even still, nothing can make up for true NFL experience than watching one of the best linebackers currently playing. In round 4, I almost went with Savion Williams, if not for one thing. He has hands that would make 2023 Quentin Johnson look like Randy Moss. He has very suspect catching ability and honestly seems to be only good at gadget plays. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands, but the most important part of being a wide receiver is, well, receiving the football. So I decided to go with a guy who kind of has the opposite problem of Demetrius Knight, and that's safety Kevin Winston. Now, the reason I say he has the opposite problem as Demetrius Knight is that he arguably didn't start enough games at Penn State. He's only started 13 games. Now, he would have played a full season in 2024 if not for the fact that he had come off a major injury. His lack of playing really shows up in his instincts. He is a raw prospect through and through, and really he needs, I would say, a year or two to bake in the oven so that his playing instincts could get a lot better. He does, however, have all the tools that you want to see in your safety, and I think ultimately, given time, he could be a very good project. And when you have guys like Winfield and Tyke Smith ahead of you, there is not an immediate pressure to start, giving him time to sit and develop, which, even more than any other guy I've seen on this list so far, is especially needed for him. But moving into round 5, we can see that the long wait for an offensive player is finally over, as I take offensive lineman Miles Frazier. Now, I went into this offseason stating for the record that I thought the Bucs could do better than Ben Bredeson, especially in the draft. I would have liked to see someone like Gray Zabel on this line playing left guard. However, the Bucs decided that they think Bredeson can improve upon a mostly average season. Miles Frazier would hopefully be the future succession plan for when Ben Bredeson inevitably leaves the Buccaneers, be it retirement or another team signs him once his deal is over. He is a good pass blocker, however, his biggest struggle right now is that he cannot run block as effectively. He can't play left guard or right guard. Obviously, I see him playing left guard again as the succession plan to Ben Bredeson. And like all Jason Light offensive linemen, he has a mean streak to him. He is what we call a glass eater, which, again, our GM always looks for whenever he decides to draft offensive linemen, although he doesn't fulfill the requirement of being from a no-name school that no one has ever heard of. And finally, we have wide receiver Ricky White, the guy I think will end up replacing Trey Palmer after Trey Palmer fair catches another punt inside the 5. He is a good gunner on special teams, although I don't think he's returned kicks or punts for special teams. And while he is a pretty good route runner, he is incredibly small and would be bullied by any corner that has had their Wheaties in the morning. He is, I think, 5'9", if memory serves me correctly, and less than 170 pounds, so he could really be bullied by me if I were to decide to line up on outside corner, and his 40 time was 4.61, which is the domain of unathletic tight ends. Needless to say, I don't see him as wide receiver 1 ever, but I do see him as potentially being wide receiver 4 or maybe even wide receiver 3 in the near future if he can just get even better at his route running and maybe put on a few more pounds. That'll do it for me though. Obviously this draft is incredibly defensive heavy, but after what we saw last season, do you blame me for using all 4 of my early picks on defensive players? But let me know what you guys think, if you think I went too heavy on the defense or if I shouldn't have drafted a single offensive talent. Let me know. Again, I am working on a Ballhawks episode, so expect that in the near future. But yeah, until next time, see ya.